My wife started sleeping with headphones on, until one night I took one of them off. At first I thought it was strange. She'd always said she couldn't sleep with any noise, and now she was listening to something to fall asleep. When I asked, she answered quickly, as if she'd rehearsed it. "It's just a meditation podcast. It helps me relax." Okay. I didn't push it. But the habit not only continued, it became more rigid. Before going to sleep, she'd put on the headphones with an almost ritualistic care. If I said something after that, she'd just look at me and point to her ears like I'm already listening. She slept turned to the side, the wires tangled in the pillow, as if it were essential. During the day, she acted normal. She was affectionate with me, attentive even. But at night, something was off. There was a strange atmosphere in the bedroom, like I was sleeping with a stranger hiding something. I started getting restless. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Jealousy? Maybe. But then came the details, small ones, but sharp. One night, she was washing dishes and humming a song. I'd never heard that melody before, so I joked, "Is that a new one? Where'd you learn it?" She froze for a second, then laughed and said, "I think I saw it in an Instagram video. Can't remember." But I knew that wasn't Instagram music. There was something repetitive, hypnotic about it, almost like a message. That's when I decided to do the unthinkable, wait for her to fall into deep sleep and take one of the headphones from her ear. That night, I waited. I listened to her rhythmic, light breathing while the lamplight cast shadows on the ceiling. Her phone, as always, under the pillow. With my heart racing, I slowly stretched my arm and slid my hand under the pillow until I found the wire. I pulled gently. She mumbled something, turned to her side, but didn't wake up. I took the headphone and put it in my ear. What I heard sent chills down my spine. It wasn't a meditation podcast, not music either. It was a male voice, a low, deep voice, too intimate. "You're doing well, just a little more. Soon, everything will be ours, Mariana." I stayed frozen. The voice continued in an almost hypnotic whisper, repeating phrases, instructions, things like, "Don't tell him anything. Remember the plan. You deserve a better life." I felt ice in my stomach. It was like listening to someone hypnotizing my wife, or worse, conspiring with her. That night, I pretended nothing had happened. I lay down, closed my eyes, and tried to control my breathing. But inside, I already knew something very wrong was happening, and I was going to find out what it was. The next day, Mariana acted as if nothing had happened. She gave me a good morning kiss, made coffee, and commented on the weather, as if she hadn't slept listening to a stranger's voice conspiring against me. I couldn't look at her the same way. Every gesture, every phrase seemed rehearsed, fake. Like she knew I was suspicious, but didn't want to give any sign. While she was showering, I took the chance to look at her phone. I don't usually do this, I swear. But this time was different. It was like my own sanity was at stake. I needed to know who she was talking to, where those audios were coming from. But the phone was locked with a password, and it wasn't the usual password anymore. She'd changed it. I started trembling. It was official. She was hiding something, on purpose. At work, I could barely concentrate. That voice wouldn't leave my head. It was a familiar voice, but not enough for me to identify it. It sounded like someone young, maybe our age, with a certain tone of authority, like he was commanding her. I came home determined. If she thought she could fool me, she'd discover it wasn't that simple. That night, when we went to bed, I tried to act normally. "Honey, are you okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked at me with an expression that was too serene. "Of course." "Why?" "I don't know. You seem kind of distant." She smiled. "I think it's just stress. Has this headphone thing been bothering you?" The question caught me off guard. She'd never mentioned this before. "A little. But if it helps you sleep, it does help," she interrupted, too quickly. She put on the headphones, turned to her side, and ended the conversation. I waited again until she fell asleep. This time, I was quicker. I carefully took her phone and brought it to my office. I turned on the laptop and connected the USB cable. I had a program installed, an old file recovery software. I was an IT technician before changing careers, and that ended up saving me. The program detected the device, and even without the password, I managed to access some folders. Most files were encrypted, but there was a hidden folder with a recent creation date. Inside, several audios named with dates and times. I opened the first one. "Good night, Mariana. Today we're going to reinforce the idea of autonomy. You don't need anyone to control your life, not him. Repeat. I am free, I am strong, he doesn't control me." My eyes widened. I opened the second. "Soon we'll start phase 2. He can't suspect anything. Smile, hug, kiss. Make it seem like everything's normal, but stay strong. You're getting closer to freeing yourself." With each audio, the same voice, the same brainwashing. But what scared me most was a name that appeared in the third file. "As we agreed, the money will be deposited in Lucas's account tomorrow. After that, we start the tests." Lucas. I knew that name. It was Mariana's ex-boyfriend. The guy she said she'd blocked from everything. Who was in the past. Who she never wanted to see again. The same Lucas who years ago was fired from work for suspected psychological harassment. Suddenly, everything started making sense. Mariana was being manipulated, or she'd been lying to me all along. I needed to confront her, but carefully, If she was being manipulated, I could help her. But if she was involved, then I was sleeping next to someone who was planning to destroy my life, and maybe worse. I spent the following day completely torn. Part of me wanted to believe that Mariana was a victim of the situation, that this Lucas guy had found a way to re-enter her life and was manipulating her, taking advantage of some vulnerability. Maybe she was going through something I hadn't noticed. Maybe I had failed her. But the other part screamed that she was lying, that she knew exactly what she was doing, and that she was playing a dangerous game with me. In the late afternoon, I came home determined to test her. I wasn't going to confront her directly. I wanted to observe, see how far she'd go with this charade. I prepared dinner as if nothing had happened. She arrived shortly after 7, gave me a kiss, and went to shower. When she came back, she sat at the table, looked at my plate, and commented, "You really went all out today, huh? Trying to win me over again?" I smiled, but inside, I was burning. "Always, right? You never know when someone might try to steal you from me." She laughed, but her eyes avoided mine for a second. That night, I waited for her to fall asleep again, but this time I didn't touch anything. I just watched. The way she adjusted the headphones, how she checked twice to make sure they were properly positioned, how she hid the phone under the pillow with excessive care. It became clear this was routine, not improvisation, and worse, she was comfortable with it. Like she was already living a second life, parallel to the one she led with me. The next morning, before leaving for work, I did something that cost me some conscience. I installed a spy app on her phone. It wasn't something legal, I know, but I was desperate. I needed to understand what was happening, and more importantly, if I was in any danger. The first few hours didn't reveal much. Trivial messages, family groups, occasional conversations with friends. But at 3:42 p.m., a notification appeared. "Lucas. Today, after the recording, I want you to do what we agreed. He can't notice anything." That made me freeze. Recording? At 6:10 p.m., another message from him came. "Lucas. When he goes to the bathroom, put the phone on the back part of the shelf. The camera will catch enough." My heart raced. They were going to record me? But why? Was it blackmail? A dossier? Were they trying to incriminate me? Or were they preparing something even worse? When Mariana got home, everything about her seemed rehearsed. The kiss, the smile, the excuse that she had a headache and was going to bed early. The moment she went to the bathroom, I went straight to the living room shelf. I looked behind all the books, decorations, and there it was. Her phone, with the front camera activated, propped between 2 books, subtly, almost imperceptible. I removed the device calmly, opened the recording app. It had been recording for 42 seconds. I held the phone for a few seconds, in silence. That's when I heard her voice coming from the hallway. "What are you doing there?" I turned slowly, still holding the phone. "The question is, what are you doing, Mariana?" She stopped in the living room doorway. Her face went pale for an instant, but quickly recovered. "What do you mean by that?" "This phone. It was recording, hidden, and with messages from Lucas." The silence between us was so thick I could hear my own heart beating. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, with an expression I'd never seen before, a mix of fear and guilt. "I can explain," she finally said, with a low voice. "Then start, because I'm at my limit." She took a deep breath, approached slowly, and said, "I'm trying to protect you." That phrase hit my head like a bomb. Protect me? By recording secretly, getting messages from your ex-boyfriend? She hesitated, bit her lower lip, and then dropped a phrase that turned everything upside down. "Lucas is a police officer, and he believes you're being followed by someone who wants to harm you." I laughed. A short, incredulous laugh. "Mariana, do you think I'm an idiot?" But she was serious, and I started wondering if, in the middle of so many lies, some part of that could be true. "Mariana, look at me," I said, still holding her phone. "Do you really think this story makes sense?" She stayed silent, didn't look away, but also didn't try to get closer. She stood there, as if she'd been caught in the act, but still trying to maintain control of the narrative. "I know it sounds absurd, but it's the truth," she insisted. "Lucas isn't just my ex anymore. He joined the police, yes, and he said he found evidence that you're in the crosshairs of a group that has already destroyed other people, businessmen, people in your field." That caught me off guard. Mariana knew I was closing a big contract at the company, and that the competition was fierce, but still. "And what group is this? Who are these people?" "I don't know details," she replied too quickly. "He doesn't tell me everything. He just said he needed to infiltrate, record, seem like he was in cahoots with him, to attract whoever's really behind this." "Mariana, this is ridiculous. You're telling me that Lucas, your ex, who you swore you'd never see again, came back out of nowhere, became a cop, and you agreed to work with him secretly behind my back, pretending you were betraying me, all to protect me?" "Yes." She said this with such conviction, as if expecting that absurd version to convince me just by the tone. I stood still. The phone trembled in my hand. I really wanted to believe she was telling the truth, that all of this was some elaborate plan for my own good. But it was impossible to ignore everything I'd already heard in the audios, the way he spoke to her, the instructions, the veiled threats, the promises of a new life. "Give me a name, a document, proof that he's really in the police," I demanded. She hesitated for a second, enough for me to know she couldn't prove it. He said he couldn't show anything yet. Investigation secrecy. Mariana. I sighed, feeling my stomach turn. You're getting lost in a lie so absurd that even you can't sustain it anymore. She approached with tears in her eyes. I swear I'm not lying. All of this was to protect you. I swear. If it's true, then why does he talk to you that way? Our plan? Our life? My voice came out harder than I intended. She swallowed hard, and then she threw out, like playing a final card, because he's still obsessed with me, and I let him believe I still feel something, so he'd trust me. It was a clever argument, dangerous even, because it had a hint of plausibility. But again, she only said this after being caught, never before. Mariana, I spoke lower now, tired. Do you love me? She hesitated. For a split second just, but I saw it. I do, she finally answered. I took a step back, then prove it. Cut all contact with him now, delete everything, block him, show me, and let me listen to the next audio, whatever he'd send today. She went mute. Her silence said more than anything else. You can't, can you? She started crying, but not out of desperation. It was a contained, frustrated cry, like someone who realizes the game has turned, but doesn't know how to get out of it. Forgive me. I just wanted, her voice broke. I just wanted a different life. That phrase hit me square on. Different from me? I asked, my throat tight. She didn't answer. It was at that moment that my phone vibrated in my pocket. An anonymous message. No name, no number. If you keep snooping around, you'll end up like the others. Take care of your woman and shut up. My blood went cold. I looked at Mariana. She had also heard the sound of the notification, but she didn't move. Didn't ask anything, as if she already knew. And then, for the first time since everything started, I realized that maybe she was also being threatened, or maybe she was an accomplice in something much bigger. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room couch, phone in hand, reviewing every detail of the past few days. The anonymous message was still there, etched on the screen like a sentence. If you keep snooping around, you'll end up like the others. Others? Who were these others? Businessmen, like she said. People who disappeared, were destroyed, silenced, and worse. The warning told me to take care of my woman. Did that mean she was in danger? Or that I was being used precisely by her? The truth is, at that point, I didn't trust anyone anymore. Not her. Not this Lucas guy. Not even my own instincts. Mariana didn't come back to the bedroom. She slept on the couch, saying she needed time. But even lying there, just a few feet from me, she seemed distant, unreachable. Strange. The next day, I went to the local police station. I asked for information about an officer named Lucas. I described his last name, his face, everything I remembered. The attendant looked at me like someone who wanted to tell me to go home and get some sleep. Sir, we don't have anyone by that name here, and there's no record in nearby battalions either. Are you sure he's a police officer? I thanked him, left the station, and sat in the car. And then I understood. She lied. Again. Lucas wasn't a cop. Never was. He was pretending to be one. Making up this story for her, or with her. To manipulate everything, record me, push me away, destroy me. But why? I came home and she was already waiting for me, serious, sitting on the edge of the couch with her hands clasped. We need to talk, she said, without beating around the bush. I sat on the couch across from her and waited. Lucas. He was never a police officer. I lied. I know, I replied dryly. She swallowed hard, looked at the floor. He showed up again a few months ago, said he knew things about you, about your work, dangerous things. Said if I collaborated, he could protect me, that he'd help me get out of this suffocating life. Suffocating, Mariana? She hesitated. I felt trapped, forgotten. You always so focused on work, meetings, contracts, and me there. Invisible. I just wanted to feel like someone saw me again. It hurt to hear that, because deep down, part of me knew she wasn't completely wrong. And you thought the solution was to ally yourself with a guy who had already hurt you in the past. I thought I could control it, that it was just playing his game until I understood what he really wanted. And what does he want? She raised her eyes. They were teary but firm. He wants to destroy you, end your image, your company, your stability. Said you did something in the past, that there are big people wanting to bring you down. I froze. What kind of thing? She shook her head. I don't know. He never explained, just said everything would come to light and that I'd be rewarded for helping. And you believed it? She didn't answer. But there, in her silence, was the confirmation I needed. Mariana wasn't just a victim. Maybe she'd started being manipulated, but at some point, she chose to continue. So now that's it? You sold me out for a promise? No. She raised her voice for the first time. I regretted it. That's why I told you. I just wanted to take it back, but it was too late. And now? She bit her lip, looked at the door, looked at me. Now. He's coming after both of us. At that moment, the intercom rang. 3 rings. Spaced out. Precise. She and I looked at each other, and for the first time since the beginning of everything, I saw terror in Mariana's eyes. Not regret, not sadness, real fear. The intercom kept ringing. 3 rings, then silence, then 3 more. It was a pattern, a signal. Mariana got up slowly, as if each step to the device was a tightrope walk. I followed her, my heart pounding, trying to understand if what was about to happen was real or just the beginning of something much worse. She picked up the intercom receiver but didn't say anything, just put it to her ear and listened. I approached. Her breathing became heavy. "It's him," she whispered. "Lucas." I stretched my hand, took the receiver from her hand, and spoke. "What do you want?" The voice on the other side came firm, mocking. "Well, just came to see how things are going. Did you like my last message?" "You're not going to intimidate us," I replied, trying to stay calm. He laughed. "Ah, my dear, intimidate? I haven't even started yet. I'm just here to get what's mine, and what would that be?" The answer came cold. "Mariana?" She shuddered. So did I. "Forget it, Lucas. It's over." "Mariana doesn't want anything to do with you. You think she has a choice?" he said with a cynical laugh. "She committed herself. She's already delivered more than you can imagine. Documents, recordings, access to your email, your schedule. And now she wants to back out? Now that the game's about to turn? You're lying," I growled. "Am I? Ask her then." I turned to face Mariana. She lowered her eyes. Tears were flowing, but she said nothing. That was like a punch. "Mariana, what did you do?" She cried harder, fell on the couch and babbled. "I just wanted to get out of this life, I swear. He promised it would be quick, that nobody would get hurt, that it was just to bring you down, just take you out of control, that you'd be fine." I was shocked. It was no longer a supposition, not paranoia. My wife had really tried to destroy me from within, and now, the guy she helped feed was knocking on our door. I went back to the intercom. "Get lost. Now. Or I'll call the police." "Go ahead. It'll be fun explaining why your wife has more than 50 audios conspiring with a criminal, delivering confidential information. Let's see who they believe." He hung up. We stayed in silence for several seconds, the kind of silence that weighs like concrete. Mariana was shaking on the couch. I paced back and forth, trying to think fast, but my brain seemed congested. "We have to get out of here," she said suddenly. "Go where?" "Anywhere. A hotel, a shelter. We need to disappear for a few days. He won't stop." For the first time, I realized how truly scared she was, and how much she no longer had any control over the situation, if she ever did. "Tell me something, Mariana. Everything." "Without hiding anything," she nodded. "What exactly did you give him?" She took a deep breath, as if diving before drowning. "Meeting schedules, spreadsheets with company data, copies of contracts before they were signed. He said he was going to use this to prove you were part of a corruption scheme with suppliers. But I was never involved in anything like that, I know. But he wanted to build a narrative, distort everything, create a dossier." I sat down, running my hand over my face. "And you thought all of this would end well?" She started sobbing. "I was weak. I was lost. I felt invisible. And now I've destroyed everything. Everything." I picked up my phone and called a trusted friend, a criminal lawyer, someone who had helped me in the past. I explained roughly what was happening. He got the message. "Get out of the house now. Go to a neutral place. I'll prepare a defense dossier for you. And if possible, bring proof that your wife collaborated under coercion. You'll need it." I looked at Mariana. She looked at me as if waiting for a sentence. "Are you coming with me?" I asked. She hesitated for an instant, then nodded. "If you'll still let me, I'll go." I got up, went to the bedroom and started packing a backpack. But deep down, something told me that running wasn't the solution, because Lucas wouldn't stop until he finished what he started. We packed our backpacks in silence, the kind of silence that screams louder than any argument. Mariana packed some clothes, documents, chargers. I took my laptop and an external drive with all the company backups I had, partly out of precaution, partly out of fear they'd mess with my stuff while we were away. We left the apartment at nightfall. I chose a discreet hotel outside the central area where no one would look for us. I paid in cash, used a fake name. I didn't know exactly who we were dealing with, but if Lucas was really dangerous, and everything indicated he was, I couldn't take the slightest risk. When we entered the room, Mariana threw herself on the bed as if she'd just left prison, but I couldn't relax. I stood against the wall, looking at her. "You still haven't told me everything," I said. She turned her face. "I already told you everything." "No. You told me what I discovered, but there's more." She hesitated, closed her eyes for a few seconds, and when she opened them, her expression was different, no longer desperate, but resigned. "Lucas didn't just want to destroy you. He wanted to replace you." "Replace me how?" "He wanted to take your place, get close to your company, your contacts, your partners, said he needed you to be discredited, removed, or even arrested. And after that, he'd appear as someone who could solve the problem you created." I was shocked. "He wanted to turn me into a villain so he could later become the hero." "Exactly that." She sat on the edge of the bed with her eyes fixed on the floor. "He had it all planned out, said he'd done something similar before, that he knew how to manipulate people, and that I was just a piece on the board. Bait." "And you accepted that?" "At first, no. I swear I didn't, but he started threatening, said he knew things about me, about my family, and that if I didn't help, he'd destroy me too. And why didn't you tell me anything? She laughed, a bitter laugh, because I thought you wouldn't believe me, that you'd judge me, leave me, and part of me was afraid it might be true, that you had something to hide that hurt. Did you really think I was corrupt? She shook her head. I didn't know what to think. I was suffocated, suspicious of everything, and he appeared at the exact moment, like someone who had answers. I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I breathed deeply and opened the backpack. I took out my laptop. You said he made you listen to audios every night, right? She nodded. And where did they come from? Email? App? A cloud drive? Encrypted link. He changed it every week. Show me. She hesitated for a moment, but then took her phone. She moved with trembling fingers until she showed me the link. I copied it to the laptop and opened it, and there they were. Dozens of audio files, manipulative voices, instructions, pure brainwashing. I downloaded everything and sent it to my lawyer with a single message. Evidence of coercion and manipulation. Mariana collaborated but was used. I need this documented. Soon after, I received the reply, "This changes everything, but there's more." I discovered that Lucas is already answering to 2 lawsuits for fraud and false identity, sending complete dossier soon. Prepare yourself. I looked at Mariana. She was watching me. Do you still trust me? I took a while to answer. I don't know, but I want to believe. She nodded. Didn't cry. Didn't smile. Just nodded. The next morning, my lawyer called me with a tense voice. Listen, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but you need to know. The documents Mariana gave him, he leaked them. They're on a closed forum. Someone paid a lot to have access. This has now become a reputation war. You need to prepare for the worst. And what do? The only way to reverse this is to expose him before he exposes you, with proof, with everything. In other words, if I wanted to save my name and maybe even my freedom, I was going to need to face Lucas head on, and this time, with Mariana by my side. The idea of confronting Lucas disgusted me. He had invaded my life, manipulated my wife, threatened my freedom, my reputation. And even so, I knew running wasn't an option. He was the type who wouldn't stop until he destroyed everything. But what he didn't know was that now I also had a plan. I spent that whole day locked in the hotel room with Mariana. We put together, along with my lawyer, a complete dossier, the audios, the messages, the drive access links, conversation screenshots, every detail that proved how she had been used, and how he had been building a sophisticated trap to incriminate me. My lawyer suggested a bold strategy. We're going to flip the narrative. If you two can arrange a meeting with him, and he admits any part of the plan, even just hinting at it, we record everything and deliver it straight to the public prosecutor's office. This takes you out of the crosshairs and puts him where he belongs. Mariana looked at me with clear fear in her eyes. A meeting with Lucas? He'll notice. Only if you crack, said the lawyer. But if you can get him to think you're still on his side, it could be game over. She hesitated, but then nodded. I'm in. The next morning, Mariana sent him a coded message. Need to talk, alone, can't stand hiding anymore, want to know how this ends. It took a while, but he replied, today, 6 p.m., at the warehouse near the old train station. Alone, Mariana. If he's with you, you'll regret it. It was everything we needed. We positioned recording equipment on Mariana's phone, and also with a hidden recorder in her purse. Everything synchronized, audio and video. My lawyer accompanied us to the area, but we stayed hidden at a safe distance. Mariana went down alone, breathing deeply as if going to sacrifice. Remember, Mariana, don't argue. Let him talk. Try to make him show off. He'll want to prove he's in control. Use that. She nodded and went. We listened to everything live through the microphone. Minutes later, Lucas's voice emerged, loud, arrogant, as if he'd already won. You were taking your time, huh? Thought you were going to run off with him. I don't know what to do anymore, Mariana replied, with a weak voice, almost whispered. Everything got out of control. No, you lost control, but I didn't. Everything's exactly as I planned. The dossier already circulated. He's tainted. Now it's just a matter of time until the contracts start crumbling. And then what? Then you disappear with him. Or if you want to stay on my side, we build everything again. Better. Just the two of us, without this fake life. You said nobody would get hurt, he laughed. I lie, Mariana. That's what I do. You should know that by now. At that moment, I exchanged glances with the lawyer. He was already calling a contact at the DA's office. A little more, he whispered. There at the warehouse, Mariana stayed silent. But then, in one of the greatest displays of courage I'd ever seen, she said, "You're a monster!" His response was immediate and perfect for our recording. I'm not a monster, Mariana. I'm just someone who knows how to destroy a man, using his own wife as a weapon. That was all we needed, the lawyer signaled. 2 cars approached discreetly. Undercover officers got out. In less than a minute, Lucas was handcuffed, screaming, calling Mariana a traitor, trying to resist, but it was too late. He was arrested in the act, not just for threats, but for criminal association, attempted procedural fraud, and for being wanted by 2 other states for similar crimes. Mariana came out of there shaking. I hugged her. Tight. She cried and repeated, "Forgive me. Forgive me. I ruined everything. We can still rebuild," I said, even without knowing if I believed it 100%, but deep down, part of me wanted to believe that she had been weak, yes, but also brave enough to fix what she broke. In the following days, everything seemed like a blur. Lucas's arrest became a silent bomb. It didn't make the press, at least not at first, because the public prosecutor's office wanted to maintain secrecy while investigating his connections to other similar cases. But in my world, everything had already changed. My lawyer advised me to act with total discretion. No social media, no trying to clean my image yet. The priority was to legally protect my reputation and let his case unfold until I could use all of that publicly, safely, and legally. The most complicated thing, however, was living with Mariana in the meantime. We lived in an apartment borrowed from a colleague of my lawyer, a small, discreet place in a distant neighborhood. I slept in one room, she in another. We saw each other at breakfast, exchanged a few words during the day, but there was an invisible barrier between us. She tried to get closer, cooked my favorite foods, asked how I was, brought coffee while I reviewed documents, but I didn't know how to look at her anymore without remembering everything. The lies, the audios, the moment when she hesitated to choose my side. But there was something even more complex. Part of me still loved her, and that was perhaps the greatest torture of all. One night, she knocked on my bedroom door. "Can I come in?" I nodded without looking. She sat on the edge of the bed. "I wanted to thank you for not abandoning me, for not letting me sink with him. I did it because you decided to change, and because you needed help, not because it was easy." She lowered her head. "I know you'll never trust me the same way again, and maybe you shouldn't, but if there's any chance to rebuild this, even if it takes years, I'm willing to wait." Silence. I slowly closed the laptop and finally looked at her. "The truth, Mariana? I don't know if I can trust again either, but what you did at the warehouse saved my life, and maybe saved yours too." She nodded, a timid smile full of pain. The next morning, my lawyer called me with news. We got access to the complete contents of Lucas's devices, and we found proof that he forged contracts, created emails in your name, manipulated audios to incriminate you, and more importantly, Mariana appears as a victim of coercion in several excerpts. This completely changes the game. And now we start preparing the public reversal. I'm going to contact people in the press. With the complete dossier, we can clear your name and expose Lucas as the real criminal. That gave me a hope I didn't even know I needed. That afternoon, I received a message from the oldest partner at my company, a reserved but fair man. "Heard about what happened. Some investors jumped ship, but others are waiting to see how you position yourself. I'm with you. If you have something to show, send it to me. I believe in you." It was the first time in weeks that I felt supported. I sent the complete dossier with the lawyer's guidance. In less than 48 hours, I received responses from 2 clients who had suspended contracts. They were backing down. It was still little, but it was the beginning of a reconstruction. Later, when I told Mariana about this, she cried. "That's good," she said, wiping her eyes. "You deserve much more than what I did to you." I looked at her. My voice came out before I could filter it. "But if you really love me, Mariana, you'll have to prove it with actions, every day, for a long time." She nodded. "I know. And I'm willing." That night, for the first time since everything exploded, we had dinner together at the same table, in silence, but without hatred, without fear, with something that perhaps was the beginning of forgiveness. The following weeks were a slow and silent process of reconstruction. I still hadn't returned to my old life, but I could already glimpse the way back. The charges against Lucas were multiplying. 2 more women appeared, both with stories almost identical to Mariana's. He would approach with charm, seduction, or promises of protection, and then transform these people into pieces on a dirty board, always with the same objective: ascension and destruction. The press finally started talking about the case. They didn't cite my name directly, thanks to my lawyer's work, but used terms like private sector businessman and attempted corporate sabotage. It was enough for those who knew me to understand what was behind it. At work, returns began to emerge more consistently. Clients who had disappeared started responding again. One of the most important proposals of the semester, which I thought was lost, was resumed. Gradually, trust was being rebuilt, but the most complicated continued to be life with Mariana. On the outside, she seemed dedicated, attentive. She avoided any step that seemed forced, but inside, I felt the distance, not from her, mine. I had built a wall, high, and I didn't know how, or if I wanted, to tear it down. One night, she came near my bedroom door with an envelope in her hands. "This is for you," she said, and left the envelope on the little table beside the door. Then she left, without waiting for an answer. I took a while to open it. When I finally read it, it was a handwritten letter, an apology. but different from the others. She talked about old things, the moments when she felt left aside, the fears she never had the courage to verbalize, the mistakes she made trying to feel alive again. She acknowledged everything, didn't try to justify herself. And at the end, she wrote, "If one day you want to try again, from scratch, like two strangers crossing paths on the street, I'll be there. But if you don't want to, I'll understand that too, because loving someone doesn't give me the right to be forgiven. It just gives me the courage to keep trying." I held that letter for hours. I cried. For the first time since everything, in silence, because despite everything, I still loved her, and I hated that. The next morning, I asked her to have coffee with me outside that place, a public place, quiet. She was surprised but accepted. We sat in a small, almost empty cafeteria. Mariana seemed like a different person, lighter, less tense. We talked like we hadn't in a long time, without tension, without accusation, just real conversation. For the first time, we were able to laugh, a small, shy laugh, but real. "I don't expect us to go back to what we were," she said. "But I'd like, at least, to go back to being someone you trust to share silence with." That phrase dismantled me. "Maybe that's what we need now," I replied. "Silence, without distrust," she smiled. A smile without hurry. On the way back, we walked side by side. Our shoulders touched for a few seconds, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't pull away. I don't know what the future holds, if what we once had can be rebuilt, if forgiveness can become love again, or if all of this will just become a scar that one day we'll learn to respect. But the important thing is that, in that moment, for the first time in months, I was at peace. Peace is a treacherous state. When you find it after a turbulent period, the natural instinct is to distrust it. You get that feeling that something is about to go wrong, as if the calm were just preparation for the next disaster. But surprisingly, the days began to flow. The public prosecutor's office accepted the dossier we delivered. Lucas was officially indicted for attempted procedural fraud, false identity, criminal association, and other crimes related to corporate sabotage. He still tried to claim insanity, distort the facts, but the evidence was too solid, including Mariana's. She gave testimony, delivered more audios, screenshots, files, everything. She was hard on herself, didn't try to play the innocent victim. She admitted she was wrong, that she gave in, that she chose the wrong path in a moment of weakness. This was crucial for her to be included in the process as a collaborating witness, which prevented her from being prosecuted along with him. Even so, she paid a price. Her family was shocked by everything. Her parents cut contact for a while. Some friends distanced themselves. And the hardest part, she had to leave her job. The company discovered part of her involvement with Lucas, and even with legal absolution, decided to go separate ways. I watched all of this happen up close. And against all expectations, I began to see Mariana with different eyes. Not as the woman who betrayed me, but as someone who fell hard, and, instead of hiding, decided to get up, expose her own mistakes, and accept the consequences. That requires a strength that few people have. In my professional life, things normalized faster. I managed to clear my image, resume partnerships, and, with the lawyer's support, file a lawsuit against Lucas and his accomplices, seeking compensation for moral and material damages. But my personal life was still delicate territory, until, one Saturday, Mariana called me to talk. We were in the same borrowed apartment, still waiting for the official outcome of the case. "I'm thinking of going away for a while," she said. My stomach turned. Going away? Not forever. Just distance myself, reconnect with myself, try to understand who I am outside of all this, away from chaos, from judgment, and away from you. I stayed silent. "I still love you," she continued. "But I can't continue here waiting for the day you look at me like before. It consumes me, and it consumes you too. And where do you plan to go?" "I have a friend in Recife. She offered me shelter for a few months. I can help with her son, maybe find a new job. Just, I need air." I understood. And even with the pain, I accepted. "Will you let me know when you arrive?" "Always. I'm not running away. I'm just trying to live." That night, we made a simple dinner. We ate in silence, like two people who had already said everything they needed to. Then, we lay down, each in our own room, and the silence there was sadder than any fight. The next day, I took her to the airport. She hugged me tight, but didn't cry. She said, "No matter where I am, if one day you want to try everything again, from scratch, like I promised, look for me. And if not," she smiled with wet eyes, "we've already given each other more than many people have in an entire lifetime." I watched her board with a small suitcase and a giant weight that finally seemed to have lifted from her shoulders. I went home with the strange feeling that, for the first time, I was alone. but not lost. The days after Mariana's departure were constant silence. Not that oppressive silence from when she was still around and we barely spoke. It was a new silence, lighter, almost respectful, as if the empty space she left wasn't suffocating me, but giving me time to think. At first, I tried to distract myself with work. I went straight to the company, reorganized departments, reinforced digital security. It took me months to realize the size of the vulnerability that existed in my relationships, not just with Mariana, but with myself. I started therapy without telling anyone. The first session was uncomfortable, like opening a box you locked out of fear of seeing what's inside, but gradually, I began to understand a truth that hurt me more than any betrayal. I was also absent, blind, distant. I'm not saying I deserved what Mariana did, not even close, but it became clear that, at some point, I stopped looking at her as a woman, as a partner. She became part of the routine, of the house, of the system I sustained. And she imploded that system selfishly, wrongly, but humanly. This doesn't erase the pain, but it explains part of it. Meanwhile, the case against Lucas progressed. He tried everything, denied, distorted, blamed Mariana, then me. But the evidence was incontestable. The trial was closed to the public, but I had access to the main excerpts, and in one of them, he mentioned me. He was just an ordinary guy, weak, obsessed with control. I thought it would be easy to bring him down, and it would have been if she hadn't cracked. That phrase kept echoing in my mind. Mariana could have destroyed me, and almost did. But in the end, she chose to save me. Shortly after the conviction, 7 years in prison in a closed regime, I received an unexpected call, unknown number. "Hi," said the voice on the other side, soft, calm. "It's Mariana." My heart gave an involuntary jump. "Hi, how are you?" "Better. I work at a cafe. I take care of my friend's son when she's on the night shift. I'm breathing, thinking, even writing. That's good." Pause. "I heard Lucas was convicted." "He was. Officially and finally." She breathed on the other side of the line. "I didn't call because of that. I just wanted to thank you, again, for letting me leave with my head held high, even after everything. And to say that I'm well, but I still think about you every day." I swallowed hard. "I think about you too. Not every day, but frequently enough to know it hasn't become the past yet. So, one day we'll see each other?" I closed my eyes, smiled, even though she couldn't see. "Maybe. One day, but only if it's from scratch." She laughed softly. "That's how I want it. Like we never destroyed each other." We hung up without more words, and incredibly, it was enough. That night, I sat on the apartment balcony, the old one, which now seemed different, and stayed there, looking at the city lights, thinking about everything that happened, the betrayal, the lies, the unlikely reconciliation, and I realized that life isn't made of happy endings. It's made of reconstructions, of pauses, of second beginnings, and maybe ours was still to come. 2 more months passed since that call. 2 months in which every day I asked myself, what if I called back? What if we tried? But every time I got close to doing it, an internal voice stopped me, because I still didn't know if it was missing Mariana, or missing the idealized version of her, the one that existed before everything fell apart. It was during any night coming back from the grocery store that I received a new call. Saved number. Mariana. I answered with my heart racing. "Hi," she said with a light tone. "Sorry to call you like this, but I'm in Sao Paulo for a few days. I came to visit a cousin who had surgery. I thought of you." I thought about responding something polite, contained, but what came out was, "Want to have coffee tomorrow?" Silence. Then, "I do." We met at a small cafeteria in Villa Mariana. Neutral, simple, looking like reunions that don't need grandeur. I arrived 10 minutes early, something I never did in the past. I caught myself fixing my hair in the glass reflection like a nervous teenager. When she arrived, I knew right away. This was another Mariana. The way she walked, how she looked at me without shrinking, without guilt, but also without arrogance. Just mature, human, real. "Hi," she said with a half smile. "Hi," I replied. We sat down, ordered 2 coffees. The initial silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. She started, "I'm glad you came. Didn't expect it." I didn't expect to say yes either, but something brought me here. We talked for an hour. We talked about work, about what each of us had learned from everything, about trust, reconstruction, fear, guilt. No promises, no attempt at forced restart, just presence. At the end, she said, "You know what's craziest? I dreamed about this coffee. The same table, the same way you hold the cup with your left hand. And in the dream, I didn't want the meeting to end." I smiled. "We still have time." She looked into my eyes, deeply. "Do you forgive me?" I took a while to answer, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I needed to feel the strength of saying it. "Yes, I forgive you." She closed her eyes for a second, breathed deeply. "And you?" "I am still forgiving myself too." We said goodbye with a long hug. No kiss, no "let's try again," just "call me when you want to," and another Write me if you prefer. I went home with a light heart. Not hopeful, light. Because for the first time, I understood that I didn't need to chase what we were. I just needed to be open to what we could still become. After that coffee, things returned to a rhythm I hadn't felt in a long time. Natural. Without pressure, without promises, without the weight of having to decide the future. We talked once or twice a week. Short messages, quick calls. Sometimes a song she'd send me, or news she'd say, had our face. It was strange, but good. One night, after an exhausting meeting at the company, I got in the Uber and opened my phone. There was a notification. Mariana sent you a photo. I opened it. It was a plate of food, clearly messy, with a handwritten note beside it. It's not like what you make, but I learned to like the kitchen mess. Today, I thought of you. I smiled. For the first time in days, I replied with just, the mess was what saved us, wasn't it? She typed and stopped, typed again and deleted. Then came just, yes. The mess and the courage. That dawn, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything we'd lived through, not just the chaos, but the good parts, the trips, the long conversations in the kitchen, the lazy Sundays with stupid movies and popcorn that always burned a little. And I thought, is it worth trying again? Is it possible to love again someone who once broke you? Or does forgiveness also need to be a new beginning, even if slow, careful, distrustful? The next morning I opened email and wrote, subject, second chance, or the attempt at one. Hi. I've thought a lot since our coffee, and I came to a strange conclusion. I don't know if we work out, but I know that when we laugh together, the world seems lighter. If that's reason enough to try, then maybe we should try. Without rush, without labels, without going back, just walking side by side, like people starting a new story, even with the same characters. I sent it. I stared at the screen, as if she'd respond in real time. Of course she didn't. The next day during lunch, my phone vibrated. Subject, second chance, or the attempt at one. Hi. I laughed alone at your email because I was writing exactly something similar. Yes, I'm in, walking, without demands, without rush, but with affection, with care, and with truth, one step at a time, even if it's just to the next corner. I closed the phone with a silly smile. Maybe it was the beginning of a new phase, not a classic reconciliation, not a fairy tale, but a silent agreement between two people who understood that truly loving, sometimes, is having the courage to stay, even after everything. If someone asked me how a story like ours ends, I wouldn't know how to answer with certainty. Because actually it doesn't end, it changes form. From that last email on, Mariana and I began a new phase, an almost friendship, almost romance, almost everything. But this time, with a clarity we never had before. There were no guarantees, just intention. We talked more frequently, but without clinging. A good morning now and then, a call to tell something silly, a voice message just to hear each other's voice. We started meeting once a week, in public places, neutral, simple. A movie theater in a distant neighborhood, a walk in the park, a visit to an old used bookstore where she insisted on forcing me to like poetry. It was light. And strangely, that's what made it work. One Sunday, we met at a place we used to frequent before everything, a hidden cafeteria on a dead-end street. The owner recognized us but said nothing. He just smiled, as if saying, good to see you again, but differently. We sat at the same table as always, ordered the same as always, but both of us were different. She looked at me and said, I keep wondering what it would be like if none of that had happened. I thought for a few seconds and replied, I think we would have continued as we were, on autopilot, distant. And one day, maybe, it would have ended the same way, just without learning anything. She nodded. A comfortable silence settled in. I don't want to go back to being your wife. Not now, she said, without beating around the bush. But I want to go back to being your partner, someone who walks with you, who makes mistakes, gets it right, learns. And if you want, maybe one day we'll find a new way to love each other. I breathed deeply, felt a weight lifting from my chest. That's all I want. No deadline, no promise. She extended her hand across the table. I held it. And there, in that simple gesture, I understood that love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be honest. Months later, we returned to living in the same city, but not in the same house. Each in our corner with our routines, our silences, and our choices. Sometimes we slept together, sometimes not. And that was okay. Lucas was definitively convicted. We never heard from him again. The company grew. Mariana started writing short stories, chronicles, small reflections. She published some texts on blogs. One of them talked about guilt, another about forgiveness. But the one that marked me most was the last. I destroyed someone, and that someone decided not to destroy me back, decided to rebuild, and gradually taught me to do the same. There is no greater love than that which is born after the end. I read that text about 10 times, cried during 3 of them. Today, we're together. Not like before, not like after, but like we are now, 2 survivors of ourselves. And every morning when I wake up next to her or receive a message from her with a silly photo and a thought of you, I understand that some stories don't need a happy ending. They just need continuation.